After the car accident, my arch nemesis came to visit me. To tease him, I pretended to have amnesia and called him Hubby. He was stunned. Just when I thought I had succeeded, he reached out and patted my head, saying, "I'm here, be good." Me, huh? After the car accident, I spent a few days in the hospital. Since it wasn't too serious, I recovered fairly well. However, to be cautious, my mom insisted I stay in the hospital a bit longer for observation. Sophie, my best friend, was one of the first to visit me, aside from my parents. She came just as I woke up, and I was still a bit dazed. Seeing me in this state, Sophie looked worried and asked, "Joanna, are you okay?" Having watched too many TV dramas, I suddenly thought of those amnesia plots and decided to play a prank on her by pretending to have lost my memory. So, I acted as if I didn't recognize her. "Who are you?" Sophie grabbed my hand dramatically and said, "Have you lost your memory, Joanna?" "It's me, Sophie. You still owe me $50,000, remember?" Caught off guard, I pushed her hand away and snapped, "Get out." She burst out laughing. "You think you can fool me with that acting? Nice try." Feeling defeated, I asked, "Is my acting really that bad?" She nodded without hesitation. "Don't doubt it, it is." Refusing to give up, Sophie and I came up with a mischievous plan. We decided to spread the word that I had amnesia and see if anyone else who visited me would fall for it. Over the next day, several relatives and friends came by, and many of them were successfully fooled. I was feeling quite proud of myself, lounging in my hospital bed and munching on an apple, thinking my acting wasn't so bad after all. But then, the doors suddenly opened. I immediately prepared to slip back into my amnesia act, but I froze when I saw who was standing at the door. There, tall, handsome, and looking like a celebrity, stood my arch nemesis, the guy I was supposedly betrothed to since childhood. Lucas. I hadn't expected him to visit me. After all, I always thought he disliked me. In fact, just before the car accident, we had agreed to tell our parents the following week that we wanted to call off the engagement. This arranged marriage was something our grandfathers had set up. My grandpa and his grandpa were old friends, incredibly close. So, after I was born, they decided to arrange a marriage between me and Lucas. But they never could have imagined that not only would we not end up as a couple, but we'd also become sworn enemies. Before the accident, I went to Lucas and proposed that we end the engagement. At the time, I still held a tiny sliver of hope that he might try to stop me. But he didn't. He simply nodded and said, "Okay." That's when I thought, Lucas must really hate me to be so decisive. I comforted myself by thinking, whatever, I hate him too. That icy-faced jerk, who needs him? Since both our parents were really hoping we'd end up together, we hadn't told them about our decision to call off the engagement. We planned to break the news to them the following week. But then, the car accident happened. Lucas and I stood there, staring at each other in silence as the tension filled the room. Finally, Lucas took the first step, his long legs carrying him to my bedside in just a few strides. I was still trying to figure out what to say when he spoke first, his voice low and steady. "I heard you lost your memory?" My brain short-circuited, and I instinctively nodded. Yeah, I did." To make it more convincing, I added, "And you are?" Lucas's handsome face furrowed into a slight frown, and after a pause, he said, "Lucas." I gradually regained my composure and decided to push further, asking deliberately, "So, you're the one I'm supposedly engaged to?" "Yes." At that moment, an idea popped into my head. I wanted to mess with Lucas. If he hated me so much, I was going to make him squirm. So, I suddenly grabbed his hand and whined in a pitiful voice, "Hubby." Lucas froze. His usually icy expression cracked, and he even started stuttering. "What did you just call me?" "Hubby." "Aren't we engaged? Doesn't that make you my hubby?" Lucas looked like he'd been struck by lightning, completely motionless. Sticking to my plan of making him uncomfortable, I continued to act clingy. "Hubby, why did it take you so long to come see me? My head hurts so much." Lucas didn't say anything, just stared at me with an unreadable expression. His gaze was intense, almost as if he wanted to devour me. I started to feel nervous, wondering if he had seen through my act. But then, to my surprise, Lucas moved. I thought he was going to shake off my hand, but instead, he reached out with his other hand and gently ruffled my hair. Now it was my turn to be stunned. Lucas's deep, soothing voice sounded in my ear, "Be good, I'm here." Me, huh? Now things have gotten a bit weird. It's like Lucas has been possessed. Or maybe the car accident really did mess up my brain, and everything happening now is just my imagination. Maybe Lucas isn't real, and I've just conjured him up in my mind. To confirm whether the Lucas in front of me was real or not, I sneakily reached out and pinched his cheek. The sensation felt so real, his skin so elastic. It didn't seem fake. Lucas sighed and gently removed my hand, then helped me lie back down. I didn't dare move, letting him tuck me in. The doctor said you need to rest. Go to sleep. I'll come see you tomorrow. I widened my eyes like light bulbs, trying to spot any cracks in his facade. Was Lucas also trying to mess with me? Was he playing along with my act? Was he planning to kick me to the curb once I fell for his sudden gentleness? My head was already hurting from the car accident, and now with this added layer of confusion, it felt like my brain was buzzing even louder. Seeing my pale expression, Lucas looked a bit worried. "Does your head hurt?" I nodded, and Lucas immediately reached for the call button to summon a nurse, but I stopped him. "It's fine, I'm fine," I said, not wanting the nurse to come in. "You, just stay with me for a bit." Lucas's ears turned a suspicious shade of red, but he didn't refuse. He pulled up a chair and sat down beside me. This was unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. If it were the old Lucas, he would have been furious if I touched him like that. But now, not only was he not angry, he was even being obedient. What was wrong with him? I glanced at Lucas. He sat quietly, seemingly deep in thought. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away. The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Maybe it was because I was still recovering, but my brain gradually stopped functioning, and I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, Lucas was gone. I stared blankly at the ceiling, thinking, I must have been dreaming. When Sophie came to visit me with a big bag of snacks, I excitedly told her, "You know what? I had this dream where I called Lucas Hubby, and he didn't get mad. Instead, he patted my head and coaxed me to sleep." Sophie opened a bag of chips and looked at me with pity. "Poor thing. Can't have it in real life, so you're resorting to dreams, huh?" I scoffed at her and snatched the chips, taking a big handful. "You're the one who can't have it." Just as Sophie opened a box of cake, Lucas walked in. When Lucas saw Sophie, he nodded in greeting. Then he walked over to my bed, took the chips from my hand, and gently wiped the crumbs from the corner of my mouth. "The doctor said you should eat less junk food while you're recovering." With a thud, the cake in Sophie's hand fell to the floor. Lucas and I both turned to look at her. Sophie's mouth was hanging open so wide it looked like she could swallow me whole. The next second, she let out an ear-piercing shriek that was completely out of place in the hospital room. "What the hell?" Sophie was clearly in shock. She looked utterly bewildered and said to me, "I think I just saw a ghost." Me, speechless. After Lucas left, Sophie asked me, completely confused, "What's going on? Didn't you say Lucas hates you? Weren't you two supposed to call off the engagement next week? And Lucas, the germaphobe, just wiped your mouth? This is insane. Everything's gone crazy." I vaguely explained the situation to her. Sophie still couldn't wrap her head around it. "You called him a hubby, and he went along with it? What happened to being arch nemesis?" I couldn't answer her either, so I just asked her to help keep up the act of me pretending to have amnesia. Just as Sophie and I were both questioning our lives, someone burst into the room. "Joanna." I recognized the voice immediately. It was Michael. Michael rushed over and gave me a bear hug. "Joanna, are you okay? How did you get into a car accident? Sophie said you lost your memory?" Do you still remember me? I'm your most handsome, most charming, most beloved best friend. I was suffocating in his embrace and barely managed to push him away. Get off me, I can't breathe. Michael, Sophie, and I have been close since middle school. He's outgoing, good-looking, and very popular with girls. He's had a string of girlfriends, one after another. Since the three of us hung out so much, a lot of people mistakenly thought Michael and I were dating. But both Sophie and I just saw him as a brother, we were way too familiar with each other. Michael loosened his grip a little and held my shoulders, inspecting me from all angles. Good, good, your face is still intact. You're as pretty as ever. Sophie asked him, it's been days. Why are you only showing up now, Mr. Michael? My bad. I was working on this project out in the mountains, and there was no signal. I didn't see your messages until 2 days later. But I flew back as soon as I could. I've been traveling non-stop for a whole day and night, rushing straight to the hospital. You know how important Joanna is to me. I've been worried sick this whole time. Michael did look like he'd been through the ringer, so I reluctantly forgave him. All right, you're forgiven. Michael carefully examined me from every angle. Joanna, are you really okay? I'm fine, I said, then remembered something. Oh, right, I'm pretending to have amnesia right now. Play along. Huh? Michael looked confused. Why? Before I could answer, I saw Lucas walk in. The moment he saw Michael, his brow furrowed deeply. Michael, who had been all smiles, instantly turned serious. The next second, both of them spoke at the same time. What are you doing here? I mentally screamed. Oh no. Michael and Lucas don't get along. Michael doesn't like Lucas because Lucas has always been cold toward me, and Michael feels protective of me. Lucas, on the other hand, doesn't like Michael for some reason, and his expression always darkens whenever he sees him. Just as I was racking my brain to come up with a perfect explanation, Lucas strode over. When he reached Michael, he didn't even look at him. Instead, he simply removed Michael's hand from my shoulder. Michael, caught off guard, let his hand drop easily. Lucas stepped between me and Michael, then gently touched the back of my hand. Your hands are too cold, he said, pulling the blanket up to wrap me tightly. With a thud, Michael's bag fell to the floor. Lucas, Sophie, and I all turned to look at him. Michael's face was dark, and his mouth was hanging open so wide it looked like he could swallow me whole. What a familiar scene. I immediately reached up to cover my ears, but before I could, I felt warmth envelop them. I looked up and saw Lucas cupping my ears with his hands. Sophie, seeing this, rolled her eyes and quickly covered her own ears. As expected, the next second, Michael let out a familiar, ear-splitting shriek. What the hell? Michael stared at me and Lucas, his mouth opening and closing. It took him half a minute to finally speak again. Joanna, you. But before he could finish, Lucas very rudely kicked them out. She needs to rest. You two should leave. Wait, who do you think you are? Michael's words were cut off again as Sophie dragged him out of the room. The room fell silent. Lucas looked like he wanted to say something but hesitated. Finally, he spoke. Do you remember him? I started acting again. A little. He seems like a close friend. Lucas's next question caught me off guard. Just a friend? Huh? What does that mean? I was confused. Isn't he? Lucas's expression softened a bit. No, it's nothing. He's just a friend. A very ordinary one. Then he added, try to keep him from visiting too much. Why? He's too noisy. It'll slow your recovery. He very naturally pressed the back of his hand against mine again. You're warmer now. Get some rest. I'll head back. I nodded obediently. After Lucas left, I opened my phone and saw countless messages from Michael. What's going on, Joanna? Sophie explained it to me, but I still don't get it. This is a conspiracy, it has to be. That poker-faced Lucas definitely has ulterior motives. Are you ditching me, Joanna? Woo-woo, I'm so sad. I love you so much, woo-woo. I only replied with one word, go away. I really couldn't stand Michael. He always said such cringy things. Ever since he came back, Michael had been visiting every day. I told him not to come, but he refused. Inevitably, he kept running into Lucas. On the third time Lucas kicked him out, Michael finally snapped and argued with him. Who do you think you are? I've been friends with Joanna since before you even knew where she was. Lucas, Joanna and I are engaged by arrangement. So what? It's the 21st century. And you two were supposed to call it off next. I pinched Michael hard to stop him from saying more. I need to sleep. I was afraid Michael would say something wrong, so I quickly shooed him away. Just go. Michael looked at me with a pitiful expression, but I glared at him until he reluctantly left. After he was gone, Lucas didn't say anything for a long time. I called out to him, Lucas? Lucas hummed in response, looked at me for a moment, and then said, do you remember what we were supposed to do next week? My heart tightened. Why was he asking this? Did he still want to call off the engagement? I stiffened and said, I don't remember. Maybe it was my imagination, but Lucas seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Then he gently took my hand and said, Joanna, next week, we were supposed to get engaged. Lucas and I had been engaged since childhood. Because of his parents' business, Lucas had lived abroad until high school. They only moved back for his college entrance exams. The summer before high school started was the first time I met Lucas. When I saw him, I was stunned. There's actually such a good-looking guy in the world. At the time, I silently thanked my grandpa for giving me such a handsome hubby. But even back then, Lucas had that icy expression, distant and aloof. I chattered away next to him, introducing myself, but he only said one thing, can you be quiet? I was stunned and a little hurt, but I shut up. My first attempt didn't go well, so I tried to make a good impression by peeling an orange for him. But Lucas immediately refused. Thinking he was just being shy, I enthusiastically pushed it toward him. Come on, just try a bite. But in the struggle, I lost my grip, and the orange fell onto Lucas's brand new white shirt, making a huge mess. I panicked and kept apologizing, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Lucas's face darkened. Can you just stay away from me? That day, I went home feeling utterly defeated. Later, I kept thinking that maybe from the very beginning, Lucas and I were destined to clash. If I had just listened to him and not caused trouble, maybe he wouldn't have hated me so much. But back then, I was young and stubborn. The more he pushed me away, the harder I tried to get close to him. Since Lucas was part of the student council, every Friday he would stand at the school gate to catch students who were late or not wearing their uniforms. So every Friday, I would dress up extra carefully. But that idiot Michael always overslept, and I'd end up dragging him by the collar as we ran to school. By the time we got to the gate, my carefully styled hair would be a complete mess. Unaware of how ridiculous I looked, I dragged Michael along and smile at Lucas. What a coincidence. Lucas didn't say anything. His eyes lingered on the hand I was using to drag Michael's collar for a few seconds before he coldly turned away. Feeling ignored, I awkwardly touched my nose. Michael, always ready to defend me, slung an arm around my neck and snorted at Lucas. What's with the attitude? Get off me, don't touch me, I said, pushing Michael away. Then I smiled at Lucas and said, he's an idiot, don't mind him. Lucas didn't respond. He just glanced at me and Michael, his frown deepening. I grew up in a loving family and was naturally optimistic. But even the most cheerful person can feel hurt after being ignored too many times. What really broke my heart was during a friend's birthday party. Lucas was there too. After cutting the cake, everyone went crazy smearing cream on each other's faces. I had just smeared some on Sophie's face when Michael sneak attacked me, slathering a huge glob of cream on my cheek. I screamed and chased him around the room. You idiot, you're dead. While running, I accidentally bumped into someone. Sorry. I immediately apologized, only to realize it was Lucas. I froze, not knowing what to say. Just then, Michael suddenly doubled back and tried to pull me away. But before we could take more than a few steps, Lucas grabbed my other hand. His voice was cold. You got my clothes dirty, huh? Only then did I notice the smear of cream on Lucas's shirt, probably from when I bumped into him. I quickly shook off Michael and grabbed a tissue to carefully wipe the cream off. I took my time, making sure to clean it thoroughly. Lucas didn't say anything, just watched me quietly. When I was finally done, I apologized again. I'm really sorry. Lucas just handed me a tissue. You should wipe your own face too. Then he walked away. I held that tissue, feeling overjoyed. Lucas is worried about me. The more I thought about it, the happier I felt, and I decided to go find Lucas again. I looked around and saw him on the balcony with some friends. I was about to bounce over when I heard one of his friends say, "Isn't Joanna your fiancé? She seems pretty close with that Michael guy. Are they dating?" I was about to step forward and explain, but Lucas's words stopped me in my tracks. "I don't know," he said. "We're not close." Then, as if he thought of something, he added, "She's annoying." That was when I decided to give up on Lucas. I stopped following him around, stopped greeting him when I saw him, and even started avoiding him. If Lucas hated me so much, well, now I hated him too. During that time, I was in a terrible mood. When some friends invited me on a trip, I agreed. But when we set off, I realized Lucas was part of the group. When our eyes met, Lucas pursed his lips, as if he wanted to say something. But I quickly looked away. Among the group was a guy named Denny who had a crush on me. He eagerly handed me a drink. "Joanna, want some?" "Thanks," I said, taking the drink and sipping it. Denny was about to say something else when Lucas, who was setting up the grill, called out, "Denny, come give me a hand." Denny responded and went over to Lucas. Feeling frustrated, I decided to take a walk by myself to clear my head. As I walked, I felt someone following me. I turned around and saw Lucas. I wasn't sure if he was actually following me, so I quickened my pace, trying to keep my distance. I didn't expect it. When I sped up, he sped up too. When I slowed down, so did he. Now I was sure he was following me. I stopped abruptly and glared at him. "Why the hell are you following me?" Compared to my irritation, Lucas was much calmer. But his question caught me completely off guard. "Are you planning to be with Denny?" What kind of question is that? Joanna, high school students shouldn't be dating. I didn't like Denny, but Lucas's lecturing tone irritated me to no end. I just wanted to go against him. "Didn't you say I was annoying? Why do you care what I do? Even if I date, it's none of your business." Lucas hesitated. I didn't. Thinking about his previous coldness, how he said I was annoying, made my frustration bubble over. Finally, everything I had bottled up exploded. "Lucas, you don't want to talk to me? Fine. I don't want to talk to you either. From now on, we're strangers." Without waiting for his reaction, I turned and ran back to the campsite. Everyone had heard our argument from a distance and asked me what had happened. I calmed myself down and said, "I'm leaving. If Lucas is involved in any activity, don't invite me. I can't stand him." From that day on, everyone knew Lucas and I didn't get along. And after that, Lucas and I barely spoke. It wasn't until we graduated from university that my mom brought up our childhood engagement again. That was when I finally called him and arranged to meet to talk about it. I picked a cafe. When I arrived, he was already there. Lucas was dressed formally, white shirt, black tie, his hair neatly styled. His hands were clasped together, fingers slightly curled as if he was nervous. I was stunned for a moment. What was this? Was he about to attend some high-class banquet after this? When he saw me, his voice was slightly hoarse. "Joanna." I cut him off. Lucas, let's cancel the engagement next week. The moment I finished speaking, it was like someone had hit his pause button. He didn't respond for a long time. Since he wasn't saying anything, I continued, you hate me, and I hate you. There's no reason to keep this engagement, right? Though I didn't want to admit it, I was hoping he'd disagree. But after a long silence, he only said one word. Okay. Life is full of twists and turns. We were supposed to cancel the engagement, so how did it turn into an engagement party instead? Lucas always seemed so righteous, yet he lied so naturally, without even blushing. I was dumbfounded. Engaged? Lucas didn't even blink. Our parents have been pressuring us, so the engagement was already planned for next week. My brain couldn't keep up. Isn't this a bit sudden? Lucas gazed at me with his deep brown eyes. Not at all. I've liked you for a long time. I've wanted to get engaged to you for a long time. What the hell? He said it so naturally, as if he had rehearsed it in his mind 100 times before. It didn't sound fake at all. My heart stopped for a beat. My mind was blank except for one thought. Lucas said he liked me. Even though I knew something about this felt off, I couldn't think anymore. Even if this was a trap, I was going to jump in. Sophie once told me, you're hopeless. Back in high school, you cried for days, swearing you'd never talk to Lucas again. And now. The moment he shows up, you're smiling so much your eyes disappear. She wasn't wrong. The moment Lucas took my hand, all my pride, my dignity, my so-called grudge, all of it vanished. Sigh. Being love-struck is a disease. And it's incurable. I had a million questions, but in the end, I only asked one. But right now, can we still get engaged? We can. Just focus on recovering. Leave everything else to me. I spent nearly 2 weeks in the hospital before finally being discharged. It was a Monday. Lucas took the day off to take me home. He carried all my bags into my messy apartment, then looked around with concern. Are you sure you can manage on your own? No problem. But he still didn't seem convinced. What are you going to eat for lunch? I never cooked. I always ordered takeout. That won't do. Lucas rejected my answer immediately. You just got out of the hospital. You can't eat junk food. He opened my fridge, found a few cans of beer, and sighed. After a moment of thought, he walked up to me and said, Joanna, move in with me. I froze. Huh? You're still recovering. You need proper nutrition. I can cook for you. Happiness hit me like a truck, leaving me completely dazed. I couldn't say a word. Lucas must have mistaken my silence for hesitation because he added, it's okay. If you don't want to, I can bring meals to you every day. Though it's an hour's drive each way, and I'd have to wake up extra early before work, but it's fine. I don't mind. I blurted out, no, I want to. Lucas finally smiled. Then I'll come help you move this weekend. Before moving in, we held our engagement dinner. I didn't want too many people to see through the situation, so I insisted on keeping it simple, just a meal with both sets of parents. Lucas's mother was all smiles as she held my hand. Joanna, I'm so happy. Lucas has always been so cold and serious. I don't know who he takes after. But I know that every time you were around, he was happy. Later, when you stopped coming over, I asked him what happened between you two. His expression was absolutely awful. I was stunned. Every time I went to find Lucas, he looked like he couldn't wait for me to leave. How did his mom see happiness in that? She continued, his father and I were so worried you'd cancel the engagement. We were on edge every day. Thank goodness it's happening. She hit the nail on the head. I forced a guilty smile. After the engagement dinner, I invited Sophie and Michael over to my place to share the big news. When I showed them my engagement ring, Sophie screamed so loudly she nearly shattered my eardrums. Michael, usually just as dramatic, was eerily silent. He stared at the ring, his voice unusually distant. Joanna, are you really going to marry Lucas? I nodded.
Yeah.
Sophie immediately bombarded me with questions, and I played along, ignoring Michael's strange behavior. Halfway through our conversation, Sophie got a work call and had to leave in a hurry. After walking her out, I returned to find Michael missing from the living room. I found him standing on the balcony. What are you doing out here? I asked, puzzled. It's almost 9 p.m. You should head home. In the moonlight, his expression was unreadable. He was always the cheerful one, constantly flirting and joking. Joanna, do you really like Lucas? My face heated up. Not really, just a little, I guess. A little? He let out a disbelieving laugh. Then why did you run straight to him the moment he called? Did you forget how he treated you before? His words caught me off guard. What are you trying to say? Does he really like you? If he did, why did he make you miserable? And now, out of nowhere, he wants to marry you? And you just agreed? His sharp words annoyed me. Michael, are you insane? I turned to leave. Go home. You must be exhausted from work. You're talking nonsense. Michael suddenly called after me. Joanna. If I said, would you consider me instead? I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. I knew you liked Lucas, so I never said anything. I was afraid if I did, we wouldn't even be friends. Michael continued, I wanted to stay by your side, so I kept quiet. My mind went blank. Then why are you saying this now? I thought you and Lucas were impossible. But now? He let out a bitter laugh. If I don't say it now, I won't have a chance, will I? I had suspected it before. Michael's occasional flirtations had made me wonder. But he was always such a playboy. I figured he treated all girls like that. So I ignored it, avoided being alone with him, always dragging Sophie along. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Leave. I'll pretend I never heard this. Joanna. Leave. Michael sighed and walked toward the door. Just as he stepped out, he suddenly stopped. I followed his gaze. Lucas was standing at the elevator. I was dead. Lucas stared at Michael without blinking. She told you to leave. Didn't you hear her? Afraid they'd start fighting, I grabbed Lucas and pulled him inside, shutting the door. My mind was a mess. I sat on the couch in a daze. Lucas sat beside me, gently turning my shoulders so I faced him. What's wrong? I didn't know what to say. I just shook my head. But then, Lucas dropped a bomb. Michael confessed to you, didn't he? I snapped my head up. How do you know? I stammered. Was it obvious?
Yeah.
Very obvious. Instinctively, I avoided his gaze, but he gripped my shoulders, refusing to let me escape. Joanna, what do you think? Afraid he might misunderstand, I quickly explained, I don't like him. I only see him as a good friend. Lucas ruffled my hair. All right, I got it. You knew he liked me?
Yeah.
I thought back to high school. Lucas was always visibly annoyed whenever he saw Michael. At the time, I had no idea why. But if he had known all along that Michael liked me, it suddenly made sense. Could it be that Lucas had liked me since high school? I wanted to ask him, but I couldn't bring myself to. I just pressed the thought down. After Lucas left, I called Sophie and told her about Michael. Sophie, holy shit, he actually confessed? Me, holy shit, you knew too. She sighed. Everyone knew, but no one wanted to break the illusion. We were all afraid of ruining the balance. Michael knew, you knew, and I knew. I sighed too. What a mess. By the way, how long are you planning to keep up this amnesia act? You can't keep pretending forever, you know. Sophie was right. Keeping up the act wasn't a long-term solution, but I was too scared to tell Lucas the truth, that I had only faked amnesia to mess with him at first. He'd definitely be furious. I didn't want to wake up from this dream. That weekend, Lucas helped me move into his place. We even went to the supermarket together to pick up some essentials. While we were shopping, I ran into someone I knew, Megan, my old college roommate. Megan was a sweetheart. When she heard about my accident, she was one of the first people to visit me. She had never met Lucas before, but she knew I was engaged. Seeing our tightly clasped hands, she immediately guessed, "You must be Joanna's fiancé?" Lucas nodded. "Hello, I'm Lucas. Nice to meet you. I'm Joanna's college friend." Megan, bless her heart, was a chatterbox. Once she started talking, there was no stopping her. Joanna told us she got engaged the other day, and we were all stunned. She never had a crush on anyone in college, never dated anyone, and then out of nowhere, boom, she's engaged. I tried to cut her off. Okay, that's enough. But Megan kept going. "You have to treat Joanna well. She's great, just a little annoying sometimes. Like after her accident? When I visited, she pretended to have amnesia just to mess with me. Not that I fell for it. Her acting was so bad, only an idiot would believe her." Silence. A long, suffocating silence. The moment Megan said it, I knew I was done for. Megan laughed at her own joke, but when she realized neither Lucas nor I were responding, she frowned. "What's wrong with you two? Why do you both look so pale?" Still, neither of us spoke. Thankfully, Megan's friend called her over, and she waved
Goodbye.
before leaving. I didn't dare look at Lucas. I kept my head down and walked as fast as I could. Lucas followed in silence, pushing the shopping cart behind me. I walked faster and faster until, in the end, I outright ran out of the supermarket, leaving him behind. My phone started ringing. Lucas's name flashed on the screen. With trembling hands, I declined the call and then shut my phone off completely. I was scared. Scared that if I picked up, he'd say, "Joanna, you went too far. Let's break up." Sophie's place was nearby, so I ran straight to her apartment and frantically rang the doorbell. When she opened the door and saw my ashen face, she was completely baffled. "What the hell happened to you?" I collapsed onto her couch. "I'm screwed. Lucas found out I was faking my amnesia. He definitely hates me now." Sophie had no idea what to say. She silently walked to the fridge, took out a few bottles of alcohol, and handed them to me. "Drink?" Normally, she'd stop me from drinking too much. But today, she didn't say a word, just watched as I downed bottle after bottle. Sure enough, I got drunk and passed out completely. When I woke up, my vision was blurry, and in my hazy state, I thought I saw Lucas. "Lucas? Is that you?" I mumbled, my eyes misty with tears. Lucas looked at me and gave a soft mm. Maybe it was the alcohol giving me courage, but I couldn't hold back anymore. I wrapped my arms around him and buried my face in his neck, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm a liar. I shouldn't have deceived you. You can't leave me." Lucas's body stiffened, but after a few seconds, he slowly hugged me back. "Why would I leave you? I was afraid you'd leave me. You wouldn't answer my calls and even turned off your phone. If Sophie hadn't contacted me, I wouldn't have been able to find you." I sobbed, tears and snot running down my face. I turned off my phone because I was scared you'd call just to break up with me. "I lied to you, you had every right to be mad." "I wasn't mad," Lucas said gently. "Didn't I lie to you too?" "I lied about how close we were, lied about the engagement." He softly patted my back. "I actually had a feeling you were faking it. But I didn't want to call you out on it. Do you know why?" All the hints and clues flashed through my mind like lightning. Carefully, I asked, "Because, you like me?" He lifted me up slightly so we were face to face. Then, he asked, and do you like me? I sniffled. I do. I've liked you since high school. All this time, only you. Lucas took a tissue and gently wiped my tears away. What a coincidence. I feel the same way. On the day Michael left the country, I didn't go to see him off. I thought about it for a while, then finally sent him a message, safe travels. He replied almost instantly, thanks. Then, another message followed, I'm sorry. I stared at those 3 words, momentarily stunned. Lucas walked over and pulled me into his arms. What's wrong? I showed him the chat. Michael's leaving. I guess he's settling abroad for good. Lucas raised an eyebrow, his voice calm. I see. But the slight upward curve of his lips betrayed his true feelings. I teased him. You were looking forward to this, weren't you? Yes, he admitted bluntly. He was annoying. I clicked my tongue, but then something suddenly clicked in my mind. Annoying? Back in high school, I overheard Lucas telling his friends the exact same thing, he's annoying. At the time, I thought he was talking about me. I turned to Lucas in shock. Wait, back in high school, during a classmate's birthday party, were you talking about me when you said someone was annoying? Lucas looked puzzled for a second, then seemed to remember. Oh, that. No, I was talking about Michael. He was always clinging to you. It was frustrating to watch. So that's what happened. Lucas seemed to piece things together as well. You overheard that? And misunderstood? That's why you suddenly started avoiding me? Busted, I held my ground. Even if you weren't talking about me, you were still cold and distant back then. Ignoring you was what you deserved. Lucas leaned in and kissed me. You're right. I deserved it. But I won't let it happen again. He admitted his mistakes quickly, and his kisses only grew deeper. My mind was too hazy from the lack of oxygen to think about anything else. Because of the accident, my phone was completely wrecked, beyond repair. I had no choice but to buy a new one. But my new phone didn't have any of my old messages or chat history. Wanting to keep our old messages, I turned to Lucas while he was working. Let me use your phone for a second. Sure. I unlocked his phone and scrolled up through our chat history, going through the messages one by one. And then, I suddenly froze. Right after my accident, before Lucas even knew about it, he had sent me a message. Joanna, can we not cancel the engagement? So he had tried to hold on to me. Clutching his phone, I walked over to Lucas. When he saw the message, he was stunned for a moment. Then, he chuckled and pulled me onto his lap. After you told me you wanted to break the engagement, I couldn't sleep for days. I finally made up my mind to send that message. But just a few hours later, my mom called me, saying you had gotten into an accident, and that you had lost your memory. When I went to see you, I was so nervous. But then, you looked at me and called me hubby. At that moment, I thought, even if you were lying to me, I would never let go of your hand again. I was so touched that my eyes welled up with tears. And then, he suddenly added, but there's one thing. Huh? What is it? Ever since that first time you pretended to have amnesia, you haven't called me hubby again. Without hesitation, I shamelessly kissed him on the cheek. Hubby, love you. Lucas smiled and kissed me back. I love you too, baby.